We're going to start the hearing of the budget presentation for the Syracuse City School District. Superintendent, would you like to say a few words, or should I hand this over to CFO Slack? You're muted. You're muted. Unmute.
I am. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Hey. Again, good afternoon, President Hudson, councilors, President Soyowicz, and Commissioner of Education and City Auditor Nader Maroon, who are joining us this afternoon for the presentation on the budget from the Syracuse City School District. The presentation that we're doing today, that Chief Slack is going to do, is a revised presentation to the budget that we submitted on February. As you know, the State Assembly and the governors approve a new budget for New York State, and that budget has significant reductions for us in the Syracuse City School District. Next. Next slide. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about the district progress. I know that we had this presentation last Tuesday with you, but we just want to revisit a little more. We're going to do an operations update during the school closure, the work that our teachers, our administrators, our food service staff is doing to support our students and our families. Steve Slack is going to go over the changes from the proposed to the adopted budget, the revenue expense, and the next step that will be taken in the school district for the budget. Next. When we look at the student achievement for the past few years, we have seen an increase. And again, we shared this presentation with the Common Council this past Tuesday. We have seen an increase of 2.3 points in ELA, 1.2 in math, and a 4.5 points in science. Our students also, our E&L students, are scoring higher, meeting the expanding and commanding levels in the NYS lab exam. Next. When we look at the graduation rate for the Syracuse City School District, this continues to be work in progress for all of us. This past year, we have achieved the highest graduation rate that we have during the last 10 years in the district, with a 64.5. We know that our kids are not giving up, and the state is taking that into consideration, and they're analyzing the data for 5 years and 6 years. So when we look at the cohort for 5 years, it's 66.6, and for 6 years, it's 69.5. So we continue to work with our students. We don't want them to give up. And as you can see, kids are staying in school and completing high school in 6 years. This is not different from what is happening in higher education with the colleges and the university. Some of the kids, it's taking them 5 years, 6 years to get a bachelor's degree. We are telling our kids, take the time that you need to complete high school and make sure that you walk out of high school with a high school diploma. So we are happy with the work that they're doing. Our ELL graduation rate is up 6%, and our special education student is up 5%. So we're working hard to support all our kids and all the subgroups that we have in the district. As you know, March 16 was the day for us in the state of New York, and especially in the school district. That's when all the schools in New York State were closed by the governor. On that day, we began to we began to implement our action plans for our students in the district. We began distance learning on March 18 with programs for pre-K students and K-12. We began the collaboration with WCNY for the TB in the Classroom program. And during the first week that the students were out and the schools were closed, our teachers, our administrators were recording programs to be shown to our students on TV. We know that not all of our kids have computers at home. They don't have the connections. but we were positive that there were TVs in every household in our city. That's why we connected with WCNY for that partnership. I have to say thank you to the Community Foundation, thank you to United Way, thank you to the Julie Behan Foundation for their financial support that they're providing to WCNY to continue to have this program. We have a commitment from WCNY that this is going to go as long as is needed. As long as the schools are closed, we will continue to have these programs. We have deployed over 1,356 students for our students in the district. We began to deploy computers for the high school students because we wanted to make sure that they were ready for graduation. Now we are deploying computers for middle schools, and we will continue also for the elementary level. We have delivered more than 55,000 instructional packets for the students in the district, and the third quarter report cards were sent out last week. They went out last Friday. This is an example of the TV programming that we have with Channel 24. In the mornings, we're providing programs for elementary students, and in the afternoon is more oriented to the middle and high school students, doing Regents Review, story, science project, and story time. Each day, they end with a virtual field trip for all the students that are watching these lessons. And I have to say that these lessons are not only being watched by students in the city of Syracuse, we have received email from other school districts in the county, and including the school district in Long Island and New Orleans in Louisiana. So people are taking advantage and enjoying the programming that our teachers and that our administrators are doing to support our students. We are busy providing meals for our students. Our food service staff is working every day to prepare meals for our students. We have 29 sites throughout the city providing meals for our students. Also, some of first student buses are parked in different areas of the city, west side, the east side, providing meals. So far this year, since March 18, we have served 236,784 meals for our students. We have a partnership with child care for daycare, and we have 174 children that are taking advantage of that. These are for first responders that live in the city. We have 527 slots available. So we're working every week with them to try to make sure that our kids are taken care of. We're working with first students. They're doing delivery for food and instructional materials for our students. There are 11 buses that are out every day providing these services to our families. If we hear that there's a family that was put on quarantine because someone in the family has the coronavirus, immediately the following day we begin to provide meals for those students in those houses. Continue to do social emotional support for our families using the TV, internet, or packets for our families. Our instructional administrative staff is some days in the office and working from home to provide support to our families. And we will continue to work together to have our kids and our buildings ready for the reopening of the school. Next. Right now, we have 4 subcommittees that are working on the reopening of the school. We don't know when this is going to take place. I know that the governor is going to make an announcement tomorrow about the school districts, but we're going to be ready, whether it's going to be for June, July for summer school, or for September. We have a committee that is working on the academics. We need to make sure that we know where the kids are when they return to us, how much work they have done at home, online, or through the TV. So we want to make sure that we have that ready. We need to have systems in place because a lot of our families, a lot of our kids are going to come back to us with trauma because they have lost a family member or someone that they know. So we are developing programs that we want to make sure that that is in place before they return to our school. We also need to take care of our staff. We need to make sure that we provide the professional development that they need because we have had some staff members that have lost family members during this pandemic situation. And we need to have a plan in place for the operations and the finance of the district. We have given a lot of computers out. We have let students borrow that equipment. So we need to develop a plan on how we're going to get that equipment back. If we don't get all that equipment back, what are we going to do for next year? We have submitted a plan for the Smart School Bond ad, and we're waiting approval for that so we can buy 5,000 more laptops for the district. We're buying medical equipment and personal protective equipment and sanitizing materials. So when we are back in the buildings, we have that equipment for our staff and our students. And we're looking at different ways, if we need to continue with the social distancing, different ways that we can have the kids in our building. Is it going to be a morning session for some student or an afternoon? Is it going to be some on day one, some of day two? Or whether it's going to be a combination of attending school and doing online instruction also. Next. Now, I would like to turn it to Chief Financial Officer Suzanne Slack, who will continue with the presentation on the budget.
Thank you.
Superintendent, may I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
I don't want you to go too far in your presentation without addressing the question about graduation. We know that there won't be a graduation in June, but has there been any discussion of any plans for graduation for the year of 2020?
Yes, we are meeting with the high school principals and we are discussing different options, whether it's going to be a virtual graduation. If they left the social distancing, we are talking to OCC, that's where we have our graduation. And they have 3 different areas. They have the SRC arena, a gymnasium, and auditorium that we can have people in all those places and do video of the event there. And there's some other schools that are planning a different kind of event using the caravan and all that, but we will recognize our students.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're putting also signs in front of the houses for some of them, door decorations. So our kids have worked very hard and they deserve to be recognized. So we're not giving up on that yet.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do for grades?
Before you move forward, I have one quick question about the TV classrooms. Does that substitute the learning experience in total, or is it supported by other initiatives to complement?
No, it is supported by other initiatives. Those are lessons that are being shown on TV. We're preparing materials, and that material is either mailed home, delivered on a school bus, or the parents can download it from our website, and they can use those materials with those lessons on that are on Channel 24.
Okay, thank you.
And I heard on the back a question about the grading. There's a letter that is going out tomorrow to all the families about the grading in the district. For elementary level, we are going to continue with the 1, 2, 3, 4 that we have in the report card. And there's going to be a section for where the teachers are going to put comments like no evidence based on the pandemic situation that we have had since February of this year. At the high school level, we are using the numeric between 0 to 100. All that is going to be added. But at the end, the final grade is going to be a PD, like pass with distinction, for those students that are scoring between 85 to 100. Passing for students with a 65 to an 84, or an I for an incomplete. We're not going to be failing kids. We're going to give the opportunity to make up all the work that they need to be successful in those classes. So they have until the end of the summer to make up the work that they have missed and be successful in the classes. Today, also, the Board of Regents canceled the Regents exam for August. So we are going to be working with our kids, making sure that they complete all the work that they need so they can get the credit, so they can accumulate the 22 credits that they need to graduate from high school.
Okay. I have one other different question.
Go ahead, Red.
The STEAM school, I know we had made a lot of progress, and I think it had been funded by the state. So what's the status of that? And I understood that the county was supposed to lead the procurement to go ahead and do the renovations. So are they moving ahead with that, and are they on schedule to keep moving ahead, or is that somehow delayed?
No, they're moving ahead with that. The county executive presented to the legislative body, and I believe that they approved that. Right now, we're in the process of transferring the building from the city to the county, so we can continue with the process of the renovation of the building.
So you would expect the school to open what's
Probably 22, 23 school year.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so CFO Slade, you've got the floor.
Rita?
Yes. You have a question?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
It's Joe, Rita. So Superintendent, I see here food distribution is done 3 days a week. Could you run us just through what's the motive and the costs that it costs the district?
Jaime, you're muted. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. We are doing it 3 days a week in order to take into consideration the health of our kids and our family. There was a lot of conversations about keeping social distancing, asking people not to go out of their houses and all that. So what we're doing on Mondays, we're giving them meals for Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're giving them meals for Wednesdays and Thursday. And on Fridays, we're giving them the meal for Friday. On Fridays, we're also working with other agencies like Mercy Work, Abundant Life, support from United Way, and families are getting boxes of food that they can have for the weekend. So the reason why we went from every day to 3 times a week was to try to reduce the contact with people and all that. But they're receiving meals for every day.
So is this something just for the coronavirus period, or is this something you have done throughout the year?
This is something because of the coronavirus situation right now. Usually during the year, they get the meals every day. And for the summer programming, those meals are also provided every day. This was because there was a lot from the governors, from the county, and from other people in the community asking people to stay home, to keep social distancing, and to make sure that our families and our staff were, that we were taking care of all of them.
What has this cost for you?
Counselor, I don't have that number yet. We have applied for 3 different grants from the federal government and the local government to support this initiative. We have received approval for this yet, but we don't have a dollar amount for this initiative. But as soon as I have that, I will share that with you and with the council.
Okay.
Thank you, Superintendent.
You're
Are there any more questions for the Superintendent?
Just one more clarification regarding the transportation. We're using the first student to transport the meals and also the packets. And we received a notification last week that the state may not reimburse the district for those expenses. So
Okay.
we're working with our elected officials, we're working with people in Washington to try to get the financial support needed to pay for that transportation expense.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, we can move on to CFO Slack.
To the
Thank you.
budget.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you,
Counselor,
Suzanne.
can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we hear you, we hear you.
Can you hear Suzanne?
Yes, yes, we do hear Suzanne, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through what has happened in light of COVID-19 on our budget for next year. On April 2nd, New York State finalized the state aid runs, which ended up with a $24.9 million reduction in state aid for Syracuse as compared to the governor's proposed budget that was released in January. As part of that, filling the hole a little bit is the Federal CARES Act of $16.1 million. So what this means is the state aid will go down a pandemic adjustment amount of $16.1 million, and that will be offset by federal grant funds in the same amount. So the net impact is $8.8 million. So the 24.9 minus the 16.1 is a net impact of $8.8 million. As a result of that, state aid in our adopted budget, the budget that we're going over this evening, is $356.5 million, which is about $37 million less than what we had initially in our proposed budget in February. And you may recall in that proposed budget, it included the governor's state aid, but also the district had asked for an additional $12 million. So when we look at where we started the plans for next year and where they are right now, there's about a $37 million swing. In addition to that, we have received word that
What's the
further
number?
state aid reductions
Suzanne,
will
what's
be
the
coming
number compared
in
to
the
last
range of
year?
10 to 15%. So I wanted to take a quick minute and walk you through
Suzanne?
what kind
Suzanne?
of led up to where we are today. In
They
the
have us
first
on
quarter of this calendar year, the state comptroller announced that the state was looking at roughly a $6 billion shortfall in their revenue projections, and I'll call that the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. Shortly after that, in early March, when the pandemic initially hit, the federal government had put forth a delay in tax filing requirements, and New York State jumped on board with that right away. So they deferred the tax filing and payment 90 days. Normally, taxes are due April 15th. Now they're due July 15th. So that delays them receiving income tax receipts for the whole quarter. That was a little iceberg that came into play. So in order to help bridge the gap for that period of time for that quarter, similar to what we did, the state went out and did a short-term financing for about $8 billion to make sure they had cash to bridge the gap for that 90 days. So then the comptroller came out again and said, in addition to the $6 billion deficit, we now are forecasting an additional $10 to $15 billion deficit as a result of the pandemic. Shortly after that, the final budget was released on April 2nd, and it included what's called a take-back provision for the 20-21 year. And what that means is there are measurement periods set up where they will look at the results of the state. If their revenues are less than 99% of the budget, or if their expenditures are more than 101% of their budget, that opens up the door for them to be able to do a take-back of state aid. So this next slide shows you the measurement periods for the take-back. So this month of April that's ending today is the first measurement period. We will find out in the coming week how much additional state aid will be reduced starting next year. We will find that out in early May. Then the balance of this year, May and June, another 60-day measurement period will come into play. And in early July, we will find out about a possible second take-back of state aid. as part of balancing the state's budget. Then for the July through December, really the first 6 months of our fiscal year, the state will do another look back provision. Again, if revenue is less than 99% of what they expect, or if expense is more than 101%, there will be the option for them mid-year to take back additional aid from the school district. And I think most of you know, we set our budget at the beginning of the year. We hire the teachers, put them in the classrooms, and the year goes on for 10 months. It is very difficult mid-year to make a significant reduction in the budget because we already have classes set and schedules set for the children. So we are hopeful that these first 2 take-back periods will be the only provisions of take-backs that are incurred. And then at the end, you see January to March. That's really the last 3 months of the state fiscal year. The state year ends March 31st. There is a possibility that there would be one final take-back in the last quarter of our fiscal year, but that's not clear at this time. So right now, we're really focused on the first measurement period and take-back. So the reason I wanted to share all that with you is the budget we're presenting to you tonight is a placeholder, and it's the top line of what our budget would be. As these take-backs are brought forward, we will be reducing our budget and going back to the board for a readoption. Every year we look at what are our sources of revenue, but it's important to understand that the Syracuse City School District is primarily funded by state aid. Almost 80 cents on the dollar each year comes from the state. So when there is a significant reduction in state aid, it has a very significant impact here in Syracuse. And it's important to know that difference because other districts that are less reliant on state aid, and they have their pie, the largest part of their pie really comes from property tax, they're able to better weather a reduction in state aid because they rely on it much less than we do here in Syracuse. I wanted to take a minute to talk about the tax rate and the tax levy for this year. The red dots on this chart represent the tax rate each year over the last 15 years, and I only put the rates on for a couple of selective years, but you can see back in 2006-07, the tax rate for school taxes was 17.703 per $1,000 of value. And last year was the first year of an actual rate increase. It went up to 17.4098 as part of the mayor's final budget. What's happening this year is that the tax rate for school taxes is being dropped to $17.15.06. So they're holding, the recommendation in the city's budget is holding the tax levy for the school district flat at $66.4 million by reducing that tax rate. If the tax rate were held flat with the current year, that would yield almost $1 million of additional revenue for the school district. So I wanted to take a quick minute to walk you through the budget assumptions for revenue for this year's budget. The final legislative state aid as of April 2nd is $356.5 million. And that does include a Chapter 1 accrual. And you may recall dating back to the 2016 year, or 2012 year, excuse me, the district started advancing state aid from future years into the current year in order to balance its budget. This is allowable through annual legislation approved in the state's budget, and the maximum that we can accrue each year is $31.7 million. So we are continuing that again this coming year. This $356 million does not include a reduction for the take-back provisions that I just spoke about. That will be calculated in the coming weeks, and that amount will be reduced accordingly. Our building aid for next year, building aid is an aid available to offset the debt for construction projects. We are assuming in next year's budget that an early aid waiver for the Corcoran and Nottingham projects will be approved. The filing goes through on July 1st, and we have every reason to believe right now that that would be approved. But I did want to point out that that is a big assumption in next year's budget in terms of funding. So there is a slight chance that that aid could be delayed by 1 year. In addition to that, we have the $66.4 for the tax levy that is flat with the current year. In sales tax, we are projecting to be lower due to the economic downturn forecasted for next year. We are using some fund balance for next year's budget. We're consistent with the current year, asking to use $14 million to balance the operating budget and an additional 3.6 that was committed and assigned by the board in a prior year to pay for capitalized interest in the JSCB projects. If we do that and nothing else changes between now and the end of the year, we would have about 8.3% of our budget and available fund balance for future years. And then in addition to that, miscellaneous revenue will be going down approximately $2 million. In the current year, we received the one-time shared services revenue for the healthcare work that we did with both the city and the county. That's a one-time non-recurring revenue. So our revenue year over year, if you compare the current year amended budget, state aid would be $362.3 million. That'll be going down to $356.5, or a difference of about $6 million year over year. Again, as I said, property and sales tax, property tax would be flat. Sales tax we're projecting to be down slightly due to the lower economic conditions. Can you still hear me?
Suzanne?
We can hear you, and there are questions at the floor. Can you hear us?
I can now.
Okay, Councilor Rod, you had some questions. Go ahead.
Suzanne, when we have the award ceremony for most outstanding fiscal officer in New York State, I'm going to nominate you every year. That said, with the stat you had with you asked, you're getting, as of today, 36 million less than you asked for from the state, something like that. When you just look at the numbers, how much did the number go up from last year?
Which number?
Like the number the state is currently you're planning to get from state aid. Like you asked for 37 million more than you're getting, but I assume you're getting more than you got last year. Did it go up by how many million?
No, it actually went down.
It did go down. The total amount of state aid you got from last year to this year went down.
Oh, last year, 18-19?
Whatever, from the previous budget cycle to the one you're talking about.
Yes, this year did actually go up about $12 million.
Okay, it went up $12 million. Lovely. And then on the percentage from the city, that's also true. But there's a state law, the minimum, the maintenance of effort. So like we're not giving less. Our assessment went up, so the rate went down, and we give the same amount, which, considering almost all of our revenues going down, seems like a pretty fair deal from my perspective. I just wanted to point those two things out because you're really good with the numbers, but I just wanted to point out the other part of it. Thank you.
And if I could, Suzanne, I want to ask you a question because I'm looking on page 280, and I'm looking at the lottery aid, which was $46 million. And I've never quite understood. Now, where does that money go? Does it go into the general fund, or how is that distributed?
Yes, President. That's part of the total state aid calculation.
Mm-hmm.
So it does go into the general fund.
And my last question for you is, so if there's more reduction from the state, how do you propose to recover?
Very carefully. So we are actually meeting tomorrow to discuss various areas of reduction that will take place. It really depends on how much state aid is reduced. We're hearing it could be 10 to 15%. That could be $30 to $50 million, which is significant. It would require astronomical cuts to our budget. It would mean very large changes moving forward. It could impact programs. It could impact summer school. Certainly would have an impact on non-instructional goods that we buy, on staffing at all levels. But we are working on that, and we're just waiting for the final numbers from the state in order to balance the budget.
And looking at your fund balance, you're going to be using close to, 18 million. So how does that leave your fund balance?
Good question. That would leave us with our current projection for the end of this year, which is still up in the air, with about $37 million or 8% left in our fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne, this is Nader.
Commissioner Rudd, I could barely hear you. Did I answer your question?
Councilor Venaglia? Or Suzanne, can you hear me? This is Nader.
Oh, yes.
You can hear me?
You're
Suzanne?
too soft, Nader. Speak up.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The information that you shared with us to this point is based on the assumptions that there won't be any additional federal aid at this point in time. This is all predicated on what you're being told or anticipating from the state, correct?
It is correct, but it does include the $16 million of federal CARES funding. So that those expenses are carved out of this budget and moved over to the grant fund. But it does not include any additional grant funds that may become available.
Right. The initial 16 that you got and the difference between that and the 24 it left you with the 8.8. But so the anticipation, much like the city is faced with and the county and all municipalities, is looking for additional federal. And then the follow-up, I thought I had heard Governor Cuomo last week say he was going to announce the state aid to schools tomorrow. Is that not accurate?
From what I, from what I heard,
Suzanne?
We can't hear Suzanne, and the superintendent sounds like he's in another dimension.
That's why y'all need to invest in an Android. I'm using my Android.
thank you, President Malcolm.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought I heard last week that the governor was going to announce tomorrow what the state aid for schools was going to be, because obviously ours is as a dependent school district versus the suburbs where they vote on theirs and have to get their budgets together to go to the taxpayer. But are you anticipating tomorrow to hear from the governor relative to state aid to schools?
Tomorrow, what we're expecting is that he will announce how long until schools reopen. He may announce a percentage of school aid reduction, but we don't expect the state aid runs tomorrow. It takes a while for that to come forth. I think we'll get that next week. They have up to 10 days to produce that. So we're hopeful that we would have that number by next week. I'm not sure that we would know that for sure tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so use of fund balance for next year, we're asking to use $17.6 million, which is a little bit less than the current year. And then all other revenue, as I mentioned, is primarily reduced because of a one-time shared services revenue we received this year. And now to go on to expenses, just quickly, I will walk you through some of our assumptions. We have position updates based on enrollment projections and mid-year changes that are expected. Our salaries are in with minimal wage estimates for the expired and expiring collective bargaining agreements. We have 11 collective bargaining agreements in the district. 10 of those have expired, and one is due to expire this June. So we will have no, unless, schools reopen and we quickly negotiate, we will have no contracts actually finalized as of June. Our pension rates from the state teachers retirement fund and employee retirement fund have gone up slightly over the current year. Our health care, we are going to show a reduction of almost $2 million year over year. The district was very fortunate this year with RFPs that were awarded to Excelis for health care, to United Healthcare for our Medicare Advantage plan, and CVS for a prescription drug plan, reducing the cost of all three of those programs. So we will continue to see savings into next year. And then workers' compensation, we actually are showing an increase next year. There was a change in the accounting for the Section 15.8 Second Injury Fund. So going forward, we will actually receive refunds as revenue and then show the increased expense. It's a wash at the end of the day. It's just a change in accounting transactions. For our non-staff expenses, we have minimal increases and a few decreases for supplies and equipment. Utilities, we are reflecting relatively flat with this year, hopeful for a good winter next year. Our charter school tuition is budgeted to go up $1 million, and that is primarily due to expansion at 2 of the charters. In the final state budget on April 2nd, the charter tuition rate was frozen for next year. So that brought our initial projections down to only a $1 million increase.
Okay, Susan,
We
can I
are
ask you a question?
projecting to borrow more cash next year. Our short-term borrowing, our revenue anticipation note, we've estimated at $60 million at 4% for 11 months. In addition to that, as you're aware, this past 2 weeks ago, we issued a second short-term borrowing in the current year to make sure that we were able to have adequate cash flow through the balance of the year during the pandemic. So our interest expense related to short-term borrowings will go up slightly. And then additionally, debt service is increasing year over year, about $12 million for the last 2 borrowings that we had completed this year for JSCB projects.
Suzanne, can you
This chart
hear us?
shows you a comparison of the current year to next year's budget and what the changes are. So year over year, our total budget will be going down $9 million before any additional adjustment from the state. Salaries and benefits are going down approximately $6 million, and professional services are going down about $13 million. Part of the reduction in both of those expenditures is shifting some of the expenses to the federal CARES grant that was mentioned earlier. Transportation currently is expected to be flat with the current year, and as I mentioned, charter school tuition will be going up about $1 million. Debt is going up, as I mentioned, 12.4 for JSCB, and interfund expenditures will be going down $4.2 million. This is primarily due to a reflection of the JSCB capitalized interest reduction. And then supplies and all other expenses in the budget are going up slightly, about $1.1 million. So if you look at spending in the school district and what happens with every dollar that we spend, about 68 cents of every dollar is spent on salaries and benefits for our staff. 9 cents is spent on debt, which last year was down from that because we had less debt. Last year it was about 6 cents of every dollar that we spent. Transportation is about a nickel of every dollar that we spend, and charter school has increased to 7 cents of a dollar. 2 years ago, it was only 5 cents. So more and more of our budget is going to paying for charter school tuition. And then our professional services are about 7 cents of every dollar that we spend. Last year, that was about 10 cents. So you can see with a reduction in contracts and professional services that has gone down.
Do you consider the $30 million that you borrow from
And
yourself?
briefly, are there questions?
Yes, there are. Go ahead, team, and then
Do you
President Hudson.
consider the Do you consider the 30 million that you borrow from your future state aid the next year as part of your debt?
No, that's a great question. That is an advance that as long as it's received by 90 days after the end of the year, September 30th, it's allowable in legislation as an accrual. So each year we accrue that funding into our budget and reverse it at the end of the year. And as long as it's reauthorized in the state's budget every year, we are allowed to continue to do that. And the interesting thing is the limit, the 31.7 million, is a calculation based on, in the 1990s, there was something called a deficit reduction adjustment, where there was an economic downturn and there was an adjustment down on state aid. Again, in the mid-2000s, there was a gap elimination adjustment where we faced other reductions of state aid. This calculation of the Chapter 1 accrual is based on those prior year reductions in state aid. So we are hopeful that since we're going through a pandemic adjustment, they call it this year, as a reduction in state aid, that will get added to the calculation so that in future years, if needed, we could do a Chapter 1 accrual for an increased amount. So it's not part of debt, it's just an accounting for advancing state aid from next year into the current year.
Do you see once you've done that, you ever stop? It seems like a Ponzi scheme that you're forever going to just want to do more.
I don't like the word Ponzi scheme, but I don't think it's ever going to stop. There could be years where things are going well and for whatever reason we don't end up spending all of our budget, and we could start accruing less than that maximum $31.7 million. I'll tell you right now, with the pandemic adjustment, this first year is going to be really hurtful, but it's usually the second year that is more financially hurtful. So I'm really expecting for the 21-22 year to be even a larger cut in state aid, and then we will start the recovery. And the recovery for state aid usually takes a good 5 years. So I would say for the next 6 or 7, if they still allow the Chapter 1 accrual, I would recommend that we continue to do that.
Suzanne, this is Nader again. So the gap elimination, that was a long time coming back, and the district had to lay off many people. And so, and as you said, it does take 5 to 7 years for that to come back. And is this accrual different than what the city did in terms of the city had the one-time spin-up?
I'm not familiar with the city spin-up, but typically a spin-up, you advance money, and then over the next 15 to 30 years, it gets paid back in increments. This is not that way. This is just a paper transaction accruing that revenue to the current year.
But it's only allowed for school aid. It's not allowed for municipalities, then, right?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Okay.
President Hudson, you had a question?
Yeah, I want to go back to what Suzanne said about charter schools. So just going back through our city budget and all the things we've been doing, I know that some of our spending is down because our buildings have been closed. So how does that compensate? Do you pay the charter schools a flat rate, or do you pay them by what they actually perform? So if they haven't been performing in these last 2 months, we still send them money?
Yes, ma'am. So the way the law is written, the charter school tuition is based on the number of students they have enrolled and attending. And attendance is a sketchy area right now where school is closed. During the closure, the public school districts are required in the executive order to have continuity of instruction, to provide food for the students, and the daycare. The executive order does not put those same requirements on a charter school. It doesn't mean they're not providing continuity of instruction, but the executive order doesn't require them to. So we are still getting invoices from the charter school, and we are in the process of reviewing those invoices now, but we have not made, the next payment isn't due until June. We have not made that payment yet.
And another thing for you, okay, so since they're not operating, but the kids are considered part of our school district, so we're providing lunch to all of those children, right? dinners.
If those children arrive at our sites, absolutely. So any student that's a resident of the city of Syracuse, we are providing the food for them. And again, I don't know if the charters are doing anything to provide food or not. It's just that it's not required of them in the executive order.
It may not be required of them. I understand what you're saying, but okay, since they're absorbing some of the public school money, so they have no obligation to basically, superintendent, work with you on a plan. If the schools are out like they are now for their children, they have no obligation to do that?
No, they do not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is there,
Are there any more of these, are there any additional, does somebody have a question?
Rod, we had a presentation earlier in the year on attendance, and you know that's a challenge to get attendance up and everything. And is there any chance attendance is going to go up under COVID, given that the superintendent said that everybody has a TV and we're sending them? Like, are we going to have higher attendance because of this?
We are counting everything.
I think we should have full attendance. We should get all the money. We should have everybody pass, everybody graduate, and we should have no summer school because we passed everybody, and then we should use all the money to buy people like technology. I know that's probably got all kinds of constraints and it's too big, too loose, but whatever. I also think in all seriousness, there should be a way that we have like online, like I don't know if Syracuse can have a Khan Academy in high school, but it seems like there should be pathways that are like online learning that are not necessarily purely within the district, but that are like almost contracted out to create options for people to do learning from home in the future. Just a thought.
Are there any more questions?
Yes, thank you, Counselor Pat Hogan. How many employees, Suzanne, do you have, or Jaime, do you have in the city school district?
Suzanne, can you hear us?
Suzanne? Jaime?
Wait, let me text them again.
Around 4,000, Counselor Hogan.
Yeah, twice as many usually, right? Something like that, Counselor.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jaime, how
Go ahead,
many
Jaime.
Around 4,000 employees.
4,000. How many of them are city residents, do you know?
It varies by unit. City residents. We will get a report, but it's not as many. In the teachers and administrators, it is about 20%. Most of them live within the county.
I'm just wondering how many, like, total, including like truck drivers and cafeteria workers and people like that too. So.
Yeah, we will get you that information next week. We run that on a regular basis. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions right now? Okay, Suzanne, go ahead.
Okay. One last quick slide. This is, in the past, the Onondaga County would present to the Common Council the roughly $16 million that they spend on social emotional supports in the school buildings. They have a breakout of student and family support services of approximately $4 million. They have 58 staff members providing this service. This is the portion that has the local share match requirement of $1.5 million that's included in the district budget. In addition to that, they provide the Promise Zone services with just under 40 staff members, and Assemblyman Magnarelli has always been a champion of funding this with a $2 million grant to the county. In addition to that, they have social or student assistance counselors in all of our schools, and that's about $1 million each year. They have 31 school-based mental health clinics with 36 staff members for approximately $6 million. They have the school liaisons for about $1 million, and then other random programs that they provide support to students throughout the district. So in total, that investment is $16.6 million and really only requires a $1.5 million match for the local share. And that concludes our presentation. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Suzanne, thanks for that presentation. With the STEAM school, I never got a firm answer on this. It wasn't from you. I know there's a lot of conjecture on this, but if 100 kids come in from the county to go to STEAM school, does their school aid come with them?
Actually, the way that will work, Counselor, is that students attending from outside of the city of Syracuse, the school aid from the state will still go to their district of residence, and their property taxes will still go to the district of residence. So they keep the revenue sources that they earn in their school district, and then they will pay a tuition rate to the Syracuse City School District. So as part of the legislation, there's a process that will be established for determining what that rate is, and it has to be approved by the Commissioner of Education. So we haven't gotten that far yet, but they will still keep their state aid and their property taxes.
The State Commissioner of Education.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Suzanne, question. What's going on with Say Yes? What's happening to Say Yes?
Say yes.
Yes.
Yes to say yes.
I'm trying to be the technician for Suzanne. That's why we keep going and come. So she's listening from my computers and talking on her computer. Say Yes is still going. We have the money to support our students. The URI money that was written 3 years ago, we have $25 million. So we are paying for the kids, and it's going strong for our kids. So it is still in our city. The thing is, we were working with the Say Yes National, but they're making some changes in the future. So all the Say Yes operations will take place locally.
And who's going to be managing them? The county, the school district?
No, probably that will still gonna be part of the community foundation because they have the money. Okay. But working in collaboration with us.
Okay.
This is Nate again, or Suzanne. Can you go back to the first slide where you had to show the reduction in net effect of 8.8 million, please? Go up to next one.
Is this the correct slide?
Yes. Thank you.
Are there any more questions from any of the counselors or anybody in the call?
I did get some answer because I have the chief operation officer. Unit 1 teachers, 24% of them. Then if you turn this off, then we can. 24% of them live in the city. Administrators, 28%, 37. Unit 3, 12%, 12 administrators, so 36%. The labor and the trades, 23% of them live in the city. They're 43, so 33 lives in the county and 10 in the city. Custodial staff, 111 live in the city, 49%. Food service, 157, 76% live in the city. Teaching assistant, bus monitor, and sentries, 406 live in the city, 59%. Clerical staff, 103 lives in the city for 42%. The nurses and nurses assistant, 27%. 27 live in the city for 38%. Unit 11 supervisors, 19 of them live in the city for 28%. And the Native American program that we have 3 employees, 33%, 1 person lives in the city. So total 40% of the Syracuse City School District lives in the city, 60% lives in the county.
What would happen if you drew it by salary? Like what above 75,000 a year, what percentage live in the city?
That will be mostly teachers, administrators, and some of the people in Unit 11. So 28. I gotta do a quick math. Tim, I'll get back to you in a minute, okay?
That's okay.
Jaime, could you send that over, that information over? I like to lay my eyes on it.
Yep, I will do that.
Okay, don't forget, I'm not on the city government email, okay?
I know, you send me the Gmail, got it.
Why
Send it
aren't
out
you,
to everyone. Yeah,
Why
send
aren't
it
you,
out.
President? Are you in hiding or what?
Yeah, I'm in, what's that, witness protection.
Jaime, please send the information to all the counselors,
Yeah.
if you may.
Should I send it to Ms. Guzman and she will send it to all of you?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Are there any more questions tonight?
Could you ask the superintendent to break that down also by race to see what?
You mean the people that live in the city?
Yes, the document that he's going to send in terms of how many live in the city and the
Is
race.
that something you can, Superintendent, is that something you can do?
My expert here is saying that yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, we'll take it then.
And there we are not including, we will include the substitute, but I didn't give you that number before. There are 877 substitute, 52% live in the city, 48% lives in the county. So you will see all the units from 00 to unit 12.
So these numbers, these numbers, go ahead, you go ahead first. Go ahead.
Altogether that, it was asked before, the total number of employees with substitute and everyone is 4,601. Without the substitute is about 3,800 employees.
So the number of the people living in the city that have increased quite a bit in the past 2 years, right?
Yes, we have. We have put a
Not
lot.
being that high. Yeah.
Yeah, we have put effort in all the programs that we have developed to recruit and retain more employees, especially teachers and administrators. The program that we have with NYU, the programs that we have with Syracuse University and with Oswego. One of the requirements for people to be able to participate in that program is that they have to be city residents and made a commitment that they're going to be in the city.
I mean, the reason I asked that question, Superintendent, there's no doubt in my mind of the devotion of the people who work for the city school district, as far as to the children of the city school district. And we all know they put an incredible amount of work, especially in consideration of this pandemic and what we're all going through as far as COVID goes. And they've had to adapt and develop new ways to get their lessons plans through and everything else. And I admire them and support them for it. But, the simple thing is that the city's taxpayers, obviously 2/3 of our property tax goes to support the city school district, and residency is a big deal with some of us. And, I know that the city school district, the city school board, unlike the city proper, it's not bound by state law as far as residency goes, and the city school board could pass a resolution or a law tomorrow and just say that all new hires would have to establish city addresses. And I know when I was on the council previously, we sent 3 different letters over stating that to the school board, and we got one answer, I think, the time I was on the council last time, so, you know, that's just an opinion I have, just a comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work, too.
You're welcome.
I
And
have
Suzanne.
one last one on the STEAM school. So is it currently fully, is the building going to get fully renovated based on the money we have and the estimates we have? And then I'm not saying you would ever do a project where the cost would come back higher than what we started with, but if they came back higher after we start working, have we figured out who pays for them?
The building will be renovated with the money that will be allocated by the state, and I believe it is $71 million. If there's more work that needs to be done after that, we need to wait 10 years in order to go back and ask for more money to continue or finish renovations in the building. So we had an estimate of how much money we think or they thought that we were going to need to renovate the building, and that's why it was the $21.4 million. So we will do everything that we can with the money that has been approved by the state.
So those monies, they won't be cut, right? So that's already on our end.
That's a good question. We don't know about that yet. I know that they had some discussions about building aid and all that. Hopefully that's not going to change, because for us, we get 98 cents for every dollar that it's spent. So we're working.
I don't really understand that answer, because if it doesn't cost 71 million, like if it costs 90 million to fix it, are we just gonna like not have windows? Like it seems like we need to finish the school. Like how are we gonna pay for it?
We're going to work with the architect to do as much work as we can with the money that was allocated in the budget.
You're so good at this. You too, Mr. Superintendent. You two are like
listen,
a dynamic duo.
I hear that, but I don't want to leave the district in, financial constraint. I mean, that's not my job, and I'm going to do everything that I can to have the program with the money that is being approved.
Well, if we can't afford the windows, it'll just be a lot of fresh air. It's okay.
Superintendent, I have a question for you. On one of the sheets that I did receive, what are we paying the University of North Carolina for? Well, what are you paying, I'll say? Well,
Okay. Ms. Lag is looking at that form right now.
Okay.
That's a program that we had for recruiting teachers from North Carolina from the university to move to Syracuse.
How did we do?
This year we have 4 teachers that came from that university. We were supposed to send a group of our kids to that university to visit and to apply for admission down there, but it happens in the middle of all this pandemic. We were not able to do that. But they are here, they live in the city, and they're doing a good job.
So do we think that for what we're putting out there, we're getting back our bang for our buck?
Yeah, because those teachers that we're hiring from North Carolina, they are minority teachers, and they're working with our kids, and they're helping us. So, but again, every contract that we have, it will be revisited. Because if we have more reductions, we need to re-examine our priorities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Superintendent is Chol. I think last year was the year that officers were taken out of schools. Am I correct?
The officers?
Yes, police officers.
They're in the schools.
They are back?
The police officers, yeah, we have had the police officers there at the high school.
Okay. Are they not in the middle? Is it the elementary school that they are not in it?
They're not in the elementary and they're not in the middle schools. When we had the reduction, I believe it was 2007, the police officers that were in the middle schools were eliminated. At that time, they developed a new concept of a quadrant officer that was assigned to work with the elementary and the middle schools. But then 4 years ago, that also changed, and we have those officers all housed in the high schools, and they will respond to issues in the middle or elementary school as needed.
Superintendent, who pays for those police officers? The police department or the school district?
We pay for 5 officers, and the police department pays for 5 officers.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions at this time?
Counselor, if I could just say, I just want to thank you for your leadership, Superintendent and Suzanne. The change in the city school district has been immense. You're doing a great job. The vitality that I experience when I see kids at Fowler and some of the other schools on the west end and the north side you can just see that the school district is moving forward, and I just want to congratulate you on what you've done.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Teamwork.
Any more comments, questions? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
So-
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you,
You're
Counselor.
welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, thank you for being joining us today, and we'll be looking for that information, Jaime. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Bye bye.